Hey guys, my name is Ezra Cohen, and today I want to show you how to create a realistic VHS effect for your footage without using any third-party plugins. I want to show you kind of the most basic way that you can do in any software at all, and I'm also going to show you some advanced techniques that you can do in something like After Effects to really take your project the extra mile. So the first thing we're going to need to do is to find some great VHS assets. Now, you can sort of search the internet and look for some options out there that are free or cheaper, but I've found for my own work that a lot of the stuff out there is just really crappy. And so I ended up sort of investing a bunch of time and money and finding a bunch of old VHS players and tapes and capturing a bunch of different sort of combinations of those tapes and players until I found textures that I really liked for my own projects. And so I've put those available on my site at ezracohen.tv. You can just see, there's a ton of different textures there and different sort of like transitions and different play elements that really sell the look. So go ahead and grab those, but let's get started with this project. So I've got a brand new After Effects project here. Now, just again, remember, you don't have to be in After Effects for the more sort of basic technique that I'm about to show you. But since I wanted to show you some advanced techniques, we're starting here. So let's just grab some footage. We're going to drag this into our project, drag this into this new sequence window, and that's going to create a new comp, that is perfectly matched up to our footage settings. Then we're going to go, I've already got, all those elements that I was telling you about. We're just going to kind of scroll through and see if there's something that we like. So I'm going to grab this one called, Long 3. It's got that sort of snow element that I like, as well as, just sort of a more subtle version of that sort of like colorful grain. We're going to drag that straight into our project and straight on top of our footage here. Now you're going to see that it's smaller because we are working with 4K footage. So we're going to scale that up. And again, I wanted to show you the most basic way to affect our footage here, which is just to change the blending mode. And we're going to change the blending mode of our VHS file to color dodge. Now you can immediately see if I zoom in that we're getting some of that sort of, distortion and some of that snow and some of the colors, especially sitting over the white, which looks really cool, and it's definitely helping sell that. You could duplicate this a couple times, it would get even further. Definitely a great look and something that you can do again in Premiere, Final Cut, DaVinci, whatever you're in. But since we're here in After Effects, I wanted to sort of take it a step further and show you how we can get a really cool, a more sort of advanced look out of these files. So what we're going to do, I'm going to delete that sort of top layer that we just brought in, and I'm going to take this Long 3 and I'm going to go right down here to right click and then pre-compose so that scale property that we just had stays there. So we're going to say move all attributes into the new composition. We're going to call this one displacement. And there you go. So for now, we're actually going to turn off the displacement layer, and we're going to go to our effects and presets, and we're going to type in displacement. And we're going to grab this effect under distort called displacement map and drag it onto our footage. So what we're going to see right now is that now that this effect is here, the displacement map layer is currently set to the footage layer itself, which is not what we want. We want to toggle this down and change it to our displacement comp. And if I scale this max horizontal displacement, if I start sort of dragging this up, we're going to start to see that we're getting a bit of that effect that I want, which is kind of warbling, all of our straight lines and our straight edges, and kind of it's grabbing basically the displacement of the VHS that we just put in this displacement comp and sort of causing the footage to be, distorted. So to take this an extra layer, we're going to change the option here from red to luminance, and then same thing for the vertical displacement, changes to luminance. So that way it's basically grabbing the white or the sort of the more bright elements from our displacement map and, using that to be what determines what stuff is getting sort of warped. So as you can see, that's looking pretty cool already. It definitely feels a lot more like a real VHS effect because it's sort of grabbing, it's sort of like causing all those straight lines to get jittery, almost like, bad interlaced or bad tracking footage on an old VHS tape. So that's cool. But we're missing sort of, that grain, that sort of texture that we want. We're missing that sort of visible, VHS flavor that we had before. So I'm just going to go back to our project here. and grab another instance of our long 3 VHS. I'm going to drag it on top and do that same sort of basic technique that we were looking at before of scaling this up and change the blending mode to color dodge. And right there, we're already seeing a lot more sort of, it's feeling a lot more real because we've got both the sort of wiggly lines and the sort of texture on top. I could duplicate this if I wanted to and get even more intense. We could even go back to our files and grab like this long 5 where we've got, you know, another layer of sort of distortion and sort of mess happening. Change the blending mode on this to color dodge again. Maybe this one's a little too intense, so I would change the opacity down to something like, you know, 19 or 20, so it's a little bit more invisible. And then playing this back, it's feeling really, really awesome because now it's got sort of all those elements of VHS of the displacement as well as the texture. So, you know, we can keep sort of tweaking this, and I could do this all day, sort of tweaking how much of that displacement we do or whatever, but I think we're pretty good at around maybe 80. So let's keep it there. Now we're seeing some problems. We're seeing this sort of like extra space here on the left. And what we can do to solve that, which is kind of a good thing for us to do at this point anyway, is go to these bonus files and grab this 16:9 to 4:3 letterbox. And we'll scale this up because we are working with a 4K sequence here. But already now we're starting to feel a little bit more sort of vintage or retro working in that 4:3 aspect ratio, which is what, you know, a lot of VHS tapes were working with back in that time period. So that's a great sort of next step. We can take this even further and grab some of these sort of, you know, transition or like these playhead items. We can grab, I really like this one, and we're just going to drag it straight on top. We can put it underneath, make sure the letterbox is always on top. But, you know, if we come back here, we're seeing we got to scale that up. We'll just scale it right to right there. And we want to change this blending mode to screen. But the problem is that I don't want to see this blue screen overlaid on top of our footage, because typically the blue screen was only if you stopped a VHS tape, right? For those of you who remember that. So we're going to sort of wait until that point right when it turns you know, off of that blue screen, and we're going to drag our footage over to the right so that we're really getting just that little moment. So we've got the menu on its own, and then it sort of turns into that. But to sort of create that transition that really happens when you do put in a VHS and it starts playing, I want to grab one of these transition effects. So let's grab this. Let's see, maybe just transition 2. We're going to drag this on top. We're going to drag this again underneath our 16:9 to 4:3 letterbox. We're going to scale this up. And we're going to change this blending mode to lighten or screen, actually maybe better because it's got more of a punchy white. That's nice. So now when we play this, we can drag this so that it's kind of like, basically I want the transition to start during the menu and then sort of finish right as everything sort of starts, the actual content starts playing. Let's play that back. And that is feeling pretty legit. So awesome. That's how you treat your footage. You know, if we were to go over here and grab, you know, a different clip, let's see, I've got just a bunch of random shots that I've sort of shot over the years here. So, you know, let's see what I can find. Maybe the shot of my buddy Austin on drums. If I were to drag this underneath, you know, again, anything that you take this displacement from our original shot and paste that on, it's going to get that sort of vibe that we want and start feeling really cool. So that's feeling pretty legit too. We'll go back to our original shot because I want to talk through one more thing, and that is I want to talk through text, you know, and really how to sell that text to sort of really feel like this. So we'll go to our text tool here and just type Pro VHS. Now I've already got this sort of look set up a little bit, but the font that I'm using is called VCR OSD Mono. It's available for 100% free on a site called dufffonts.com, DAFONT.com. There's a bunch of free fonts on there that are really helpful. We're going to go ahead and just take this and align it to the center. Looking good. And then you'll see that the effect that I have kind of going here is if you go to, you know, this play menu, you're going to kind of see the difference between this very digital, harsh, you know, sort of standard, very like After Effects feeling text that we have, that we've just typed in, and this sort of more sort of low quality, sort of almost blurry. You know, it's got blur, it's got some texture to it. It's not quite a perfect white, and then it's got this drop shadow, or sort of this outline effect going on. So we're going to kind of make sure that our text feels very similar to that. So what we're going to do is we are going to double click on this again. We can go to our character, and you'll see that I've sort of already added this like drop shadow element. I'll click off of there. I've already sort of added that sort of drop shadow element just by using a black stroke on our, you know, text here. So we can kind of match that to be really similar to what's going on up here. We can change our actual color of the, you know, font itself to something a little bit more gray. And, you know, if you compare this to what's going on up here, there's even a little bit more sort of yellow or green. So we can go up here and just do a really subtle shift over to the right, sort of match that. And that's feeling pretty good. But the next thing I want to do is take that same displacement, which is going to show up in a second. We'll take that same displacement map from our footage and we will copy it onto the VHS. So it's going to get that same effect. We can now drag our text layer underneath all this texture. Actually, not quite, because it kind of gets affected, but we'll drag it definitely under as much of the stuff as we can. And then the final thing is, again, remember, here I'll show this on full so you can kind of see. So, you know, full resolution, this is very sharp feeling. It's got very sharp corners, all that stuff, compared to this sort of blurry, like it feels like this is like just, you know, a really low quality file, because VHS was low quality files. So then we're going to double click on this, you know, back to our text layer here. And we're just going to go over to our effects and presets and type in Gaussian blur. We're going to drag that onto our VHS, and we're going to just bump up the blur to about 15. And if we zoom back out, we're going to see that it's starting to feel a little bit more sort of aligned with the rest of the text. It feels sort of lower quality, which is really nice. We'll make sure this is not bold. We'll just kind of keep it nice and clean. Maybe dial our stroke back a little bit more. And now when we play this, you know, this is feeling pretty well in line with the rest of our stuff. So let's just hit play. So you can see that the text itself is getting that same warble as the rest of the footage, as if the text is actually baked into the tape, which is what we want. And then of course, you know, we've got that blur that's feeling more organic and all that stuff. Now, again, same thing with, you know, our sort of title here. I want that title to show up after the play menu, so that it feels like we've gone from a VHS player to the actual sort of VCR content. So we'll play that, and we are feeling pretty awesome. So that, in a nutshell, is the sort of basic and more advanced ways to use VHS to really take your project to a more sort of special place and sort of add that retro flavor. I hope that this has been helpful, and can't wait to see what happens when you take these concepts and really apply them to your projects. So you guys are awesome. Hope you have a good one, and happy editing.